Can you tell me a little bit too? Because I feel like new grads will go into graduation and they're planning on doing travel therapy. They don't really apply to permanent jobs, so they just are looking at travel jobs. They only apply that way, or vice versa. They're only looking at permanent jobs. Since you had so much experience applying to permanent jobs and then to travel jobs, can you tell us a little bit about what the difference of that process is like? Like, is the permanent job process, obviously you were getting a lot of no's, but was it taking a while to hear back from those? Did you feel like the travel process moved faster? Like, just the difference, I guess?
Yeah, it's a big difference. So when applying to the perm jobs, for one, the application for each job, like you can even, you submit your resume and then they still ask you to fill out all these little components of your resume. Mm-hmm. And each application takes so much. And honestly, it's like mentally draining as you're filling out all these applications. And a lot of times, you're submitting it, you don't really know who you're submitting it to and like who's really getting it. And a lot of times I never heard back. It was a lot of like calling back again, trying to figure out who I was even, are they a recruiter? Are they actually working at the facility? Like, who's this person? Whereas with travel therapy, like the great part about it is you are relying on your recruiter, but you give like all of your interests and your needs and your priorities and everything to this recruiter. And then they go out and they kind of tell you, the ins and outs. They have experience with, maybe this would be a good fit or this wouldn't be a good fit. But they can also give you like a list and you just pick from the list and you guys can go from there. But it happens so fast. Like when you submit, you have to be ready for an interview the next day. And that happened to me in Texas because, you come out of school and you're doing all these interview preps and you're like, you got your little blazer and like all this stuff you're ready for and like all these extensive questions. And they told me she was going to call like maybe within the next 2 days. They give you like a very big time frame sometimes.
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So I was out running on a trail in Atlanta and I get this call and she's like, hey, so-and-so from Texas, do you have time for an interview? I was like, oh my God. I was like freaking out. I was like on the trail. So I ran back to my car. I was like, oh yeah, of course. And I'm like trying to catch my breath. And so I get back to my car and I'm like pulling out receipt papers and I'm like writing down stuff. I don't have anything prepared. Gosh. So anyways, it was quite a comical experience for my first one. But that's when I realized, it happens so fast. And with her questions, I mean, these people, you have to realize that they're in need. They need someone quickly, and not a lot of people, especially like the areas that are very, isolated, they don't have a lot of applications anyways. Mm-hmm. And so when they get you and they hear your voice and they hear your passion and they hear kind of a little bit of your story, they're like, okay, let's go. When can you be here? Yeah. So when she didn't ask me that many questions. And so she was like, do you have any more questions for me? And I was like, do you have any more questions for me? I was like, shouldn't you be asking me some more stuff here? I'm ready. So that was kind of, I guess, a learning experience too, of like being prepared, but also knowing, because they will end the call quickly. Mm-hmm. So after kind of getting used to interviews, I started realizing how many more questions that I should be asking about this placement, especially when you're going in sometimes the only therapist or a setting you're not familiar with. You should be prepared with a ton of questions. And speaking of interviews, you should also be prepared to interview your recruiter, ask them about their background and what they're, accustomed to, and kind of get to know them to make sure that when the time does come, you trust them enough to accept that job and to be with them for the next couple months.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think that's really important. I've heard that a lot, where interviews can be super short. They sometimes are super long, not super long, but maybe a half an hour, where you get asked a lot of situational based questions. But again, there's those times where they've seen your resume, they've seen your references, and they basically will just call and tell you about the area. And like, that's it. And so I think being empowered enough, like you said, to know like these things are important for me to know in order to move forward with this position, to feel comfortable. Because at the end of the day, like, it's really important for you to feel good about being there as well, and so not just them having you, but, vice versa. So, because you've got to be there and do the work. So I think that's really good advice.